Hey everyone, we've just wrapped up another exciting week at the Tour de France. We're on a rest day after stage 15, and we're just here to give you a quick recap on all the big action of the week. So as it stands today in the GC, Pogačar is still number one. Behind him in second with a 3 minute and 9 second gap is Vingegaard, and then Evenepoel in third with a 5 minute and 19 second gap. So that top three has spread out a little bit. And then for that race for the green jersey, we still have Girmay in first with 363 points, with Philipsen and Coquard in second and third. And then for the climber jersey, we have Pogačar on top, Vingegaard and Evenepoel, so exactly the same as the maillot jaune. And then for the youth jersey, the white jersey, we have Evenepoel, Rodriguez, and Buitrago. So there's been some movement. Vingegaard has moved up a position, and that GC is starting to spread out. And Pogačar is really showing his dominance in this tour. So let's chat about it. What has been happening over the last week that has helped spread out that gap in the GC?
This week, especially for the GC, it was it was just Pogača showing his dominance was really the story. They headed to the Pyrenees on Saturday and Sunday, stage 14 and 15, and that's where Pogača really came alive. We were wondering and chatting last week, thinking whether Vingegaard could actually show some of his dominance where he's strongest, which is in the hills, and he certainly got a bigger gap on Evenepoel, and there was a switch up from third to second for Vingegaard. But Pogača is on fire, and nobody can match him. It's more dominant than I was expecting.
Absolute hammer drop. He just dropped the hammer on the rest of the field and split it wide open pretty much. Like, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be there's going to be a little bit of clawback, but I don't think there's going to be enough.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The Pogačar dominance is real, and on that stage 14, he threw down the hammer. I was thinking stage 15, a day of more climbing with 5,000 meters of elevation, that was the day that Jonas was waiting for. But the combination of Pogačar and the UA masterclass on just working as a team just came through. I think one of my favorite moments of that stage was when they're climbing, starting to climb, and then they sent Yates up, slightly further up. He kind of pushed just there, just pushing, and then Pogačar started pulling, got a nice gap, got a slight rest on Yates, just sat on his shoulder, and then just to the moon, just rocketed off from there, and then it was the Pogačar show from that point.
What I don't get is like, how do they plan that? Like, is it just like a go with the flow kind of deal, or did Adam Yates just like get the zoomies and go up the hill and then was like, oh, I guess I'll go as well. Like, I don't get how they could figure that out on the
No,
fly.
like at this level of the sport, the strategy game is in full force. And even prior to the start of that stage, there were interviews with Pogača who had hinted that he'd like to see Adam Yates actually win the stage. But you know what? If Pogača's feeling good and the legs are ready to go, there's the number one thing for UAE right now is to make sure that nobody's clawing back seconds on the maillot jaune. And it was clear that the last 2 days of this bucket of racing in the second week was where they really pushed the pace and put that pedal down.
That was
But
great.
yeah, it was great racing. But what was really interesting to me was actually that in this most recent stage, stage 15, which we did expect to favor Vingegaard, Visma Lisa Bike was the one that was pushing the pace early. They made that stage really, really hard, and you just saw Pogača sitting on Vingegaard that for the last 50 kilometers, right on his tail, and essentially with 5 kilometers to go, once Vingegaard had already split away from the rest at about 10K to go, Pogača sat on his wheel for 5 kilometers, and then with 5K left, just blasted past. And Vingegaard sort of looked over his shoulder. I don't know if that's where, Pogača sort of scented a little bit of blood in the water, but man, did he ever attack and
He
just,
pounced.
yeah, kick and drop. It was amazing.
That was great to see. again, masterclass for the UAE team on another big stage. So that was huge.
Yeah, it was definitely a big week for the climbers in the mountains in the Pyrenees, but there's also a couple nice flat sprinting stages where, and I know we were chatting about this last week, where it was still not on, didn't get that sprint finish, and then immediately stage 10 has the perfect lead out. It just looked like Vanderpoel was just flowing through water, leading Philipsen out, and gets that stage finish. So that was a pretty big stage for him. And then again on stage 13, Philipsen got a second win. I think there's been some chatter about some controversial tactics from Philipsen of the way he is, I mean, in the past, but specifically this tour, of the way he's been sprinting and the tendency to move towards riders into the barrier.
Yeah, and I think the victim of all of this for this tour specifically has been Wout van Aert on Visma Lease bike. Not only did he get pushed back when there was the relegation earlier in the week, but we also saw Van Aert come really, really close. I think it was stage 13. There was a little bit of maneuvering from another rider into the barrier, not Philipsen. Philipsen ended up winning stage 13 with Van Aert right behind him in second, but there was that frustration that you could see from Van Aert. But it's nice to see Van Aert clawing at a stage win, especially because he suffered a crash just earlier this week. So it's been a lot of trial and tribulation for Van Aert, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I would love to see him take a stage in the third week.
He's right there. He's close. He's. I think he's gonna get one for sure.
Yep, he's had two 12 and 13. He was second in both, so I'm really rooting for him on the third week, and I'm hoping they really push for him to hopefully get that win, especially with seeing, GC maybe not getting first, and I hope they can at least work for him for that stage to pull through.
For sure. Now, on the note of sprinting, our boy in the green jersey, Biniam Girmay, has now won three. He's got the hat trick with his win on stage 12. So that's three. He's still leading the green jersey fight. But who knows? Jasper's been showing some strength. So we might see a good battle for the green jersey coming into the third week. But right now, Biniam is still dominating these sprints.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see. I'd love to see because right now he has the hat trick. Pogačar also has the hat trick, so I'm looking forward to see between the two of them that fight for the number of stage wins and see who comes out on top because we definitely have another exciting week coming up with three mountain stages as we move into the Alps.
We're talking about sprinting. We're talking about GC. There was a sprint early in the week that I don't think should go unnoted, with Jonas Vingegaard actually out sprinting Pogačar after he
Huge.
fell behind earlier in that stage, managed to catch up to Pogačar, led Pogačar up to the line with Pogačar sitting on his wheel, and then out sprinted him. What I was hearing was the first time head to head Pogačar had ever lost a sprint like that. So that
That's
was,
crazy.
yeah, crazy, I think.
At that point, I thought it was going to go the other way. I thought Jonas was going to start taking the GC spot and swing it in his favor, but then he clamped down on he doubled down on the victory there, and then he kept going.
So, Andrew, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week's another exciting week with another three mountain stages as we go into the Alps. We're expecting some hotter temperatures, and I think that's where we've, in the past, and specifically last tour, where I remember watching the footage of Pogačar climbing in the Alps and the quote speaking to his team car, the "I'm gone, I'm dead," as Jonas just rocket shift right up the mountain, just boom right up. So I'm interested to see how Pogačar does in the Alps this year with expected hotter temperatures. If he can push through this last week, it seems like he's crazy dominant. I don't know if Jonas has what it takes to close that gap, but can he get any closer? That's I think the big question on my mind.
I got a question. What was that bag that got handed to Pogi?
Oh, are you talking about the when he was on the mountain and the chip
Yeah,
bag?
I saw a
Oh,
highlight. I saw a guy give a bag to Pogi, and I was like, "What in the world is that?"
when I was watching it and I was watching the replays, it looked like a chip bag to me that just got kind of tossed at him, and then right after Jonas came up and that same fan chip bag in the face, and that's like the two leaders just tossing things at him.
What the heck? That doesn't make any sense.
No, and you hate to see it. And I think even there was somebody who caught a rider up in a
I saw that.
flag of some sort, a banner or a flag earlier in the week. And yeah, the course organizers are really putting out warnings. I think somebody actually ended up getting fined, maybe even jailed for their actions, because this is not, just child's play. This is the Tour de France. There's big money at stake, big sponsors, and it's the pinnacle of the sport. So it's frustrating to see all of that fan interference, especially when crashes are already so common. If a fan is causing a crash, that's just horrible, and it's really the worst case scenario. So there needs to be a little bit of control, but also part of the beauty of the Tour de France is on those mountain stages, all the fans supporting their riders.
He's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's the difference between supporting and interfering, right? And I
Hmm.
think there's a fine line that shouldn't be crossed.
I didn't know if it was intentional or like, "Hey, can you take this? Can you sign something for me?" I wasn't sure.
From everything I've seen, it looks like it was just he
Just
was
a
throwing
throw.
it. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, as Brian mentioned, it's the interfering and supporting because when it has to do with supporting, it's it's unreal. Like in those mountain stages, as they write stuff on the road and they all kind of gather with flags, names. It's pretty special and it's very unique to the Tour de France, I would say.
I could just imagine that definitely gives you the zoomies all the way up, and you can't. No nutrition will give you that power. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So looking at the next week and what we have ahead of us, there's a mix of stages, but I think what's most exciting, especially for some of the GC riders, will be kind of the final two stages before the last day, which is a time trial, which I loved the first time trial. So I'm excited to see maybe some fireworks in the final trial stage. But the two stages before that, we'll see a combined total of 9,000 meters of elevation across a shorter distance than Saturday and Sunday of this week. So that's quite exciting because we'll actually see some more of these really interesting chess games across the GC contenders.
The climbing is just outrageous. Like you see, I check some of their numbers on Strava, and it's just like, oh, look, their average speed. You think they'd be going downhill the whole time, but they're going only uphill. Like it's nuts.
Yeah, it really puts it into perspective just how much better the Tour de France riders are than the average cyclist. And then you hear interviews of Tour de France riders who are talking about how unworldly it is to think about the power that Vingegaard and Pogačar are pushing. Like just normal
That's
riders in the
crazy.
peloton are blown away and think it's inhuman the efforts that are being put in.
Yeah, one of my favorite videos that came out from stage 15 was just seeing Mark Cavendish just coming right after the or right before the time limit, and he just looks like absolute death. And people are on the internet are just ripping him apart of, oh, he's struggling so much. But if you actually look at his effort, it's absolutely insane. But just those climbers are just the next level of insane, which is absolutely crazy.
And it's crazy from the front to the back of the peloton. It's just a whole different range of fitness and speed. But like those top guys are just to the in into the next world. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. And talking about into the next world, UAE is a is a train that is unstoppable right now. Andrew highlighted to us that 3 of the UAE riders are in the top 10, which is just so incredible to see. just showing the absolute dominance of that team, and then also to have the best rider in the world right now is just magnificent. And I don't think anybody can touch them in terms of the horsepower at the team level, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we've wrapped up this week on this rest day, I think we're kind of moving into the hot take territory, speaking of Team UAE. And I think the thing on my mind, looking at how well they're performing, how much they dominate the peloton, and the UCI released a press release in just a couple months ago in March of 2024 of wanting to implement a budget cap for these super teams to make it more fair across teams in terms of budget so that these huge teams like UAE can't just pour money on money on money to get the best riders, all the best facilities, the best equipment. And I'm really wondering if when they start implementing this, we'll see more variance in who are winning these tours and who is dominant and just how that will be implemented.
Do you think they're talking about budget cap as in like just gear and tech, or like I don't know how it works, like salary of the team members?
Yeah, that's kind of, they haven't released all that much information and it's a little bit vague as far as what is exactly what they mean. I think that is kind of my understanding. And yeah, will there be like loopholes of, sponsors will then pay portion of the riders' salaries? I'm not too sure, but I'm definitely excited to hear more about what comes of that because I do think it is more interesting when we're going into this third week and it is a very big toss up in who is going to take that top spot. And it's not just dominance across the 2 weeks and going into that third week.
Yeah, it's the kind of news that, of course, raises more questions than answers, but it's been fairly well implemented, I think, across a number of other sports. I really do see a lot of parallels between Formula One and cycling at this level, and I think it's a good thing for the sport. It will bring potentially more money to many teams and might not even limit the biggest teams in the sport, which is really what you want. It's all about leveling the playing field in terms of the things outside of the athletes and being able to have, yeah, just more competition. I think is better for spectators, it's better for the athletes. So I'm looking forward to how the UCI handles this. And I think also one thing that was really nice to see is they did mention that this would also affect the women's UCI World Tour. And so that can really bring that pay disparity between female athletics and male athletics a little bit closer.
Absolutely. Any other hot takes or comments that either of you want to make?
I've got a nice one. The team buses, they look like a party.
100%. There's nothing more that I'd like in life but to be bopping in a zoot suit with Pogačar where he's dancing. I think that's from a few tours ago or maybe even the Giro. But seeing him bop, and I've heard it across the peloton, like he is a great guy. So yeah, they do look like they're having fun, even though for any normal mortal, just being in the tour would be a sufferfest and we wouldn't have the energy to do any of that. The fact that those guys are able to spend some time, enjoy themselves while still riding at the pinnacle of the sport is so cool.
Love it. I'm here for it.
Absolutely crazy. Brian just told me the other day that on the rest days, so today, instead of actually taking rest, the tour riders are just going out for a nice casual 120K just to spin out the legs and absolutely mind blowing. Just built different.
Just a quick recovery ride. That's all it is.
So that wraps it up for this rest day. Basically, in summary, Pogačar, it is the Pogačar show this year. He is absolutely dominant, and the three of us are super excited to see what comes in the next week, and we can see either can Evenepoel and Vingegaard close that gap a little bit, or is it just Pogačar? He's just going to pull away. So we will see, and it's going to be another exciting week of racing.
Stay tuned.
Boys in motion, out.